Hi everyone, we're Stuart and Dave Bell, father and son. I'm Stuart, founder of Alive Church and the Ground Level Network of Churches.
And I'm Dave, a worship leader and songwriter, and together we're launching Church Chat, a space where we can talk openly about church, family, and life from two generations of experience.
We've seen the good, the bad, and the downright interesting. And while we certainly don't have all the answers, we've learned a few valuable lessons along the way.
So why not join us now for heartfelt, faith-filled conversations designed to encourage you, challenge you, and hopefully help you on your own journey. Dad.
Yes.
Welcome back. This is episode 5.
Right.
The final episode in our little series where we've been looking at the 5 levels of leadership based on yours and Mum's life.
Right.
I think people have found it pretty interesting. And it's been fun to do, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's a hot day today, though.
We need to just say this studio right now is almost like a sauna. So I'm sweating already. Are you going to be
unusual
all right?
for the UK, so let's just enjoy
Unusual
it.
for the UK, but as we always know, UK, we're never happy with whatever the weather is. It's either too hot or too cold. Yeah. But it's definitely too hot today. But we'll do our best, won't we?
Yeah.
Great. So what I thought we'd do, we'd launch into episode 5, which is the last level of leadership that I've kind of am watching. But we'll also do a little season recap. So all of the 4 that have come before, because some people may have just jumped in on this episode, and it'd be useful and maybe to go back and look at some of the other episodes as to it'll paint the picture.
Remind me of the 4.
I was hoping you'd remember them.
I will, as you share.
Okay, I'll do that for you. So let's just look at this episode. So this episode, level 5 leadership, and they all began with the letter C, is commendation. Now, commendation is, we all want to hear that well done, good and faithful servant. And it's all to do with, as leaders, how do we finish well?
Yeah.
And you're going to give us some helpful tips and insights on those type of things. We're going to talk about succession. So it's going to be a really interesting episode. But before we do that, let's have a little bit of a recap back. And I'm also going to ask you a couple of fun questions as well before we delve in. So episode 1 was career or calling. And these are all based on what I've witnessed over the 39 years. That's my age. You remember that. Big one this year. Big 4-0. Big 4-0. I'm nervous about it. I'm nervous about it.
Nothing to worry about. It gets worse.
Brilliant. That's exciting to know. So episode 1, career or calling. Understanding and establishing the call of God on your life. Are you going to pursue that, or are you going to do something different? Yeah. And I've noticed that these moments, these leadership levels have been marked by maybe God presenting a situation to you and for you and Mum, the decision that you've made in those situations, I think he's gone, yes, I can work with that. Let's move on. So the first one would have been career or calling. It was when you got the builder in, you knocked down the wall in your home to allow more kids to come in and do Bible studies and those type of things. Great episode. Yeah. Episode 2 was commit or conclude. One thing we find is when you have the call of God on your life, it's something that you devote your life to. Our friend Rick Warren once said that the call of God on your life will never change, but sometimes the job description does, which is quite clever. Good, yeah. And so we were talking about pioneering and still sticking through in times of preparation and the hard times, just to remain faithful to the call of God in your life. And I believe you guys have done that. You had an opportunity to take a job in the States, which may have been a great opportunity, but you felt God said, plant in Lincoln, devote your life there. You've been doing it 40 plus years now, and you've remained faithful to the call of God. Pioneering's a difficult thing, isn't it?
It is.
And I was thinking, if you had been in another denomination, which we won't name,
of course,
but pioneering for those guys is, well, you get given a parish, a vicarage, a full team, a people and a pension, and it's called pioneering. But that was a bit cheeky, but that was not what you did.
To be positive with that, though, Dave, the moving on to a better day, it's great to have more support, isn't it? So let's keep it positive. Let's keep it affirming.
Let's keep it positive.
Yeah.
We're all positive. And that leads me nicely onto what episode 3 was, which was competition or kingdom. So we're talking about church leadership now, is that big thing that you have strived for all of your life, which is unity. And establishing unity. And the moment where this came for you, I believe, as a leader, was when you received a phone call from Nicky Gumbel wanting to plant into Lincoln.
Yeah.
And in the natural, being a well-established church here for 40 years, that's probably sometimes a difficult conversation, but your response was, we welcome you to the city. There's lots of people to be reached. Not only that, we'll support you by sending 3 great couples to help you with the launch. And I think that was an amazing moment of church unity.
Yeah, I think sometimes you just have to go with what you know to be true rather than what your feelings and emotions are saying.
It's an upside-down kingdom, isn't it?
It is.
You sometimes have to do what you don't think you should do, but the thing you should do is the right thing you should do.
True.
That kind of made sense. And episode 4. Now, these levels of leadership I've noticed are just isn't for everybody. Some people will stay at that level and achieve incredible things. But sometimes there are different levels, and I think that you and Mum experienced one, which was I've called crisis or collapse. Sadly, when we enter church leadership or leadership positions, it doesn't make us exempt from worldly things such as fear, anxiety, relational breakdowns, financial struggles, or health crisis. So sometimes those things can rock our worlds and sometimes derail us. And, sometimes then we don't follow the call of God on our lives. But we came up with this little phrase of, of what it is to be leading while bleeding. And obviously that came through my story of a significant health challenge and how you still managed as a couple to be parents, still managed to lead a church and lead a network of churches. And so I think we'll probably do some future episodes on dealing with moments of crisis.
Yeah, I think it's more to do with God's grace and his ability that's given to us rather than our own humanity and so on. But you have to yield to that, I think.
Absolutely. And so we're going to come on to this episode 5. And I think most people might be thinking, if you've tracked through this, you think, oh my goodness, I can't even stay at level 2 or level 1. How could there be a level 5? And this level 5 is something that we work towards and strive. That's something that we're not living in this particular moment. But it's to do with finishing well. And that's called commendation, hearing well done and not being derailed. And I think for you, if we were to get a little vulnerable now, I think in the media within the last, maybe 4 or 5 years, we've probably been shocked, haven't we, by some leaders maybe that we've looked up to, some incredible theologians that know the Bible inside out. But then when it comes to it, when we look back and we see they weren't really living the life that we thought they were, or whether it's some famous authors where we've quoted their books for years and we find out they've been doing something else, or those type of things. And so I think it's really important to discuss in this episode, how do we finish well? How do we guard ourselves from those type of things? And so we're going to break that down into 2 things. The first thing is, as a leader, planning for succession. Because I know in the UK church, we don't really hear many true success stories of that going well. So we'll talk a little bit about how that's been for you and Mum. And then maybe if you can help us, just give us some tips as to what practices and principles can we put in place as leaders so that actually we finish well.
Yeah.
You know?
I think long-term thinking for me has been very important. So to have a life call has been a privilege, in that I've not been in one of those situations where I've done something for 4 or 5 years and then moved on. Some people are comfortable with that. Some people are good at that. Some people start things well and then would mess it up so others come in, etc. But I also think there's a bit of a scriptural principle with regard to generations. So the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And I was listening recently to someone who was saying 3 generations are very important to see cultural shift. And so the problem often in churches like ours is we start well. Yeah. And then it moves into a sense of we've done this and mediocrity. And that's why I think part of our journey has been, from time to time, need for renewal, need for reinvention, to think things through again, to recreate. We've done that a few times, I think. Yeah. But also to recognise that it's not all about me or you, but it's to do with God's work. Jesus is building his church, and we become a part of that. So the ending well, and of course we've got to prove this as we move forward, has to do with recognising we're all vulnerable. All of us are under areas of temptation, pressure. Jesus himself was tempted, as we know, in the kind of spheres that most human beings are. And also there's this interesting thing where a measure of success with certain leaders of churches, if they're seen to be successful, they could be authors, selling lots of books. They could have a prophetic ministry that's been incredibly accurate. And then it moves from, people beginning to affirm them, see them. In early days, nobody knows what you're doing, but, you just get on with the job. But as there's notoriety sometimes, people perhaps come under greater levels of pressure. And that can be physical, emotional, spiritual. There's definitely spiritual pressure over all leaders to give up the race, etc. So again, we're back to God's grace here. All of us could find ourselves messing up in some area of our lives. But we believe that God's grace is sufficient for us.
That's great. Before we move into, let's talk about what's recently happened with succession and how do you hand on the church and those type of things. Our little tagline is the good, the bad and the interesting to do with church life. So I thought we always try and bring some element of fun, break down a little bit of like religiosity. That's a word, isn't it? It is. Just so we're human.
We are.
And I was thinking, because we've been around church quite a while, you've probably got some really classic, funny, church interesting stories. We don't want the bad. We want the interesting.
This is interesting,
So I thought, would you like me to kick off?
You kick off with a little
so
story.
I've got quite a lot. We could probably have a full episode of funny incidents that have happened to me. But I'll give you one and then you come back with one. I remember as a worship leader, it came to that moment where I was leading worship for a well-known American prophet. And it came to that time, where you would do this, where you're coming in to the end of your kind of message, you would ask for a musician to accompany you. And that's quite common practice.
Authorised version, give me a minstrel that I may muse.
Really?
Says in the authorised version.
Wow. Yeah. Well, there was a lot of musing that happened because I was called up, got my acoustic guitar, and he tricked us, really. It wasn't the end. There was another solid 30 minutes. So I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to sustain this. So I adopted playing the guitar on my knees, because it's a spiritual posture, isn't it? It wasn't that I was actually being spiritual. It was that my legs were pretty tired. So I kneeled down and I continued to play just the same 4 chords, cycling through to underpin. And so I was doing that, but time was going on. It was going and going. And so by this time, I actually couldn't feel my legs because they had gone to sleep. I think that would translate that you just couldn't feel them. But then what happened was the preacher turned around, got very excited and asked me to jump to my feet and lead us in a moment of exhortation, a song. Problem was, I tried to do that.
Dead legs.
And I fell onto the floor in front of hundreds of people because my legs wouldn't work and laid flat on my back. Now, I had a choice in that moment. I thought I could explain what's happened, which would have been the right decision.
That's the right thing.
However, I just pretended it was a spiritual kind of encounter and I was on my back. So I played the song and laid down on my back and played there. So that was quite a funny moment for me because in front of hundreds of people...
People feeling that was actually a spiritual moment.
Yeah, people thought it was a spiritual moment.
However, there is a scripture that tells us that David, King David, feigned madness at one point.
Right. So I'm okay then.
So you're kind of on the margins.
But I would have loved to.
Right.
I mean, video wasn't around in those days, but that would have made one of the funny YouTube videos of the day. Just me falling, guitar all over the place, falling on my face, people thinking it's a spiritual moment. Yeah. It's not. It's just that he was going on too long. That's all it was. What? Tell me one of yours.
Okay, well, I'll not mention the place where I was, but let's just say I was up north in England in an interesting small community. And a gentleman from the farming community in the area came forward and brought a testimony.
Oh, lovely.
And the opening line was, I got kicked on the head by... What was it? Oh, I got kicked on the head by a sheep. Praise God.
Right.
That was the start of his testimony. And then as later communion's being served, and the gentleman handed the wine to me and said, "Shed for you, cocker." Those are interesting things, when you're trying to keep spiritual.
That's amazing. I remember that I was in America one time, and I was in the Bible Belt, and the church I went to was wonderful. But it is also a similar church that would appear on a Louis Theroux documentary, if you know what I mean. Just very interesting. Wonderful, wonderful people.
Yeah.
But just
slightly strange.
I wasn't even going to say interesting.
Yeah.
And I remember it came to the point where I had led some worship and people were coming up to give some testimonies. And there was a number of testimonies there that caught me off guard. So I was obviously doing the bit you do at the end. I was stood up this time. I'd learned from the error of my ways. Yeah. And a guy came up, deep south, Texas. He came up in full hunting gear. He was in full camo. You couldn't see the guy. He was there, and the mic was passed to him, and he, what's your testimony, sir? And in a kind of a Texas accent, he went, I was run over by a deer, praise God. And he basically was testifying that he was healed because earlier on in the day he was run over by a deer.
Similar to my story.
You don't hear that.
It's interesting, right across the earth.
Yeah.
Sheep, deers,
yeah.
Come into the story.
But then the best one was there was a lady at the back and she appeared to have got out of a wheelchair. And so I was looking around and looking at the band thinking, we've just seen a modern-day miracle. This lady has just got out of a wheelchair and she's come to the front to testify. There is a God. And so I was thinking, anyway, so we were getting pretty excited about this. And then as we went back to chat with the pastor after the meeting and we shared, whoa, what a wonderful experience. He said, oh, yeah, that's just such and such. She does that every week. She can walk fine.
Very good. Yes.
Isn't that good?
Wonderful. Shall I give you one? Just one more.
Yeah, I need another one after that.
We must move on. This is to do with our celebration on the Lincolnshire Showground.
Oh, we got some stories
about
that.
Grapevine. Years ago.
Yeah.
And as you may remember, a man called Gerald Coates used to come quite regularly. On one occasion, just as he was ending his message, he wanted a little bit of
It's always the
help,
end of a message, isn't it? Yeah.
Music.
Yeah.
And so he chose someone who was on the platform who played a violin, an elderly gentleman.
Yes.
Now, let's just say he perhaps chose unwisely at that particular time because the man in question started to play a well-known little tune.
Yes.
Which I've forgotten.
Which was the nursery
I know,
rhyme.
the nursery rhyme.
Twinkle.
Oh, yeah, we'll get there, Dave. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. And it kind of fitted the moment really well. The beauty was that Gerald just kept going, never realised that there was a problem, but it caused some humour.
That is amazing. We could probably do a whole episode, couldn't we, really, of the interesting...
Yeah. We'd better move on.
I think we need to. I think we need to move on. But yeah, if you want, we could put it out to public vote. If you want just an episode of interesting church stories, let us know and we will think about it.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the question. So episode 5, ending well, level 5 leadership.
Yeah.
Before we do that, I think it'd be really good to talk about the succession. And for you and Mum, obviously starting a church in your living room that then starts to grow. You knocked a wall down to get more people in, started Lincoln Free Church, that then merged with another church, Evangel, and there's obviously lots of things of how that came. But then faithfully in Lincoln, led a church, alongside that a network of churches where churches could relate to each other. You used to call it partnership without ownership. So a network for relationships, for leaders to gather together. And that sparked also an annual event. So there's kind of 3 things happening here. Yeah. And that event, Grapevine, started, we said, 1982. Yeah. It started, and then in about 2013, I reckon, it probably reached about 13,000 people across the weekend. So it became a significant event here, and some amazing stories. Alongside that, the church began to grow, and a live church here now we would call a multi-site church. So we meet now across 7 different locations every Sunday. Now, when you're the couple that have started that in your living room and seen it grow, that's not an easy thing, certainly just to pass on and hand to somebody. This isn't like you've, in terms of a new CEO of a business that's going to run a business. This is totally different, because all of the stuff that you've gone through as leaders, the hurts, the disappointments, the people that were with you on the journey that are no longer there, all of the battles that you fought in the early days of ministry and creating something for this kingdom with God's help, for this region with God's help, that as a kid, being your kid, a pastor's kid, I kind of thought the day would never come when you and Mum have to do something different, because that's all we've ever known. And I remember you came round to our house and sat me and Sarah down and quite calmly told us, this is the plan. I'm going to be handing on the network of churches, which includes the event, was one event at the time. And also we're going to be going into a 2-year plan to hand over the church. And I knew it was the right thing, but me and Sarah kind of took some time out privately, and you kind of think, as a young boy, and all I've ever been used to is you as the dad, but also pastor of the church, you kind of think those days would never arrive. So in saying all of that, we also hear in the UK that there isn't many great stories of where churches have been handed on and it's gone really well. And so I wanted to talk about, I feel that the process that we're in has become maybe a bit of a model for some churches, and they're asking for some help and advice as to how you've done it. So talk us through the handing over of all this. How easy is it? You can be honest with us. This is church chat right now. Yeah. So talk us through the process and how you felt.
I mean, I think the first thing is life is very short. Yeah. And the older you get, it seems to go faster. But it is true that you do have to prepare well and not assume you're here forever, of course. And so Irene, your mother, would actually say I was talking transition in my 30s. And there's some truth to that, because I always wanted to pick out younger leaders. A part of our discipling process was to have young leaders around our home on a reasonably regular basis. So we had got a good reservoir, if you like, of younger leaders coming through. So that wasn't a problem. But the actual recognition that you had to move on, you had to let go. And then you start to think about what you've seen elsewhere. Yeah. And as you rightly say, some of those things that we've witnessed haven't gone too well. Yeah. And then you get into the debate where some would say it's right for a leader to move out of the church that they're in.
Yeah.
Others, like myself, would argue the case that I think it really is possible to have generational shifts and for senior people to stay into the church that they've been a part of. And then they must change roles and become father figures or even grandparents within the house.
Yeah.
Now, not everybody's personality is suitable for that.
Yeah.
Highly charismatic people, I think, would find it quite difficult because, they've been platform in many ways, and people have come because of them.
Yeah.
And so I've not been in that kind of category, believing that people have been turning up because they want to hear me speak on a Sunday. And that, if you think about it, has to do with how we build things. So we've wanted to build as wisely as we possibly could with teams, empowering people into all different spheres, wanting to make sure we didn't have just a one pastor model, however charismatic that person could be. And so what I've learned since we've handed on these three areas, what I've learned is that the biggest challenge for Irene and myself has not been a spiritual challenge, I don't think, because we've known the rightness and the correctness of handing things on. But it's been to do with emotions.
Sure.
And I think anybody that's studied these things will say that until that point, you don't really know what the emotional cost is.
Yeah.
And then you grapple with the idea that this isn't my church. You know, you've said time and time again, this is the Church of Jesus, we're stewards, we're etc. But the reality is the church, in my situation, has been my life. Yeah. And you'd kind of think about it being like a baby you've protected and it's grown up. And I even remember a man called Bob Mumford years back when there were certain challenges about leadership. He said to me, don't let anyone take your baby for a walk, speaking of the church. So in certain ways, when you're talking about church leadership, all kinds of things come to play into that. And some of those are not always good things. There may be people with personal ambition who are just looking for, the time when a senior leader moves on. And so all of those things come to play. And what I would say is our transition moments are going well, but time will tell, because I think you have to wait a while before you see things level out a little. The one area that I've rejoiced in handing on would be the event on the Lincolnshire Showground.
Sure.
And I would have to say this is pretty accurate, that for over 30 years, my summer has been pretty thoroughly disturbed by the event on the showground, both in terms of preparation, but also my emotional makeup means I'm looking at the weather too much and, what's the weather going to be like? Are people going to come? All those kind of things come to play. And because we had 2 or 3 pretty disastrous things that happened where people were in hospital, we had a wind that came through and turned over caravans, and we've pretty much had all the elements, etc. Making sure that people are safe and so on. So it's been a joy to hand that over. And now Paul Bencher's responsibility, together with the team. We've always said it's led by a team. Yeah. But the reality is the book does stop with the senior leader in so many ways. Although I would have to say that when we had some of those difficult things where media were wanting to ask questions about how we organised, others did from the team step in to face media and to answer certain questions. So the big thing on transition for Irene and myself would be the emotional stuff that's hard to explain. So now go to services and I've just got to be careful I don't in any way control from the edges. Yeah. but I do want to advise and help where appropriate.
Yeah.
Just one more thing while we're on that.
Yeah.
I have the privilege of advising into certain churches.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier advising into someone else's space. But the other interesting thing I've found is often your voice is more strongly recognised in someone else's church than in your own. And it's obvious, isn't it? Because people are used to you. And so sometimes I go to places and they think I'm bringing real wise things, whereas everybody yawns in the local scene if we're not careful.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I think we did prepare well. In terms of the local church live, which is the last thing we've handed on, which is just over a year ago, we've had the people that are leading, the team that are leading there have been alongside me for a long time.
Yeah.
They're all great people, well trusted, and in a sense, most of them are in the same age bracket.
Yeah.
And we've tried to loosen the leadership a little to a leader that isn't perceived as the senior person, but they're the first among equals, if you like, because these are all very gifted people.
Yeah.
And so my comment into that now, which is being readily received at the moment, is to try and help that team not just all be equal in terms of everybody has a voice, but they must be also making clear decisions and communicating well, which is often easier if you have a senior pastor that is responsible for it all. So the challenges we faced in the early pioneering days, the team that are now overseeing Alive have got to go through some of those challenges and questions, and they'll have to find their own way in that. And my hopes are we're able to stay in the mix, advice where appropriate, particularly when asked for, but making sure that we don't become in any way corks in the bottle, because there are stories, and I've heard one or two of them, where strong characters have handed on leadership but have very much not let go.
Sure. That's amazing. And being part of that process, obviously, for us, that this is all we've known, was really interesting. But we probably should say, certainly me and Sarah felt like the process of that May weekend, the church leadership team did a great job in honouring you and Mum. We had this amazing celebration weekend, really, where international guests came, did a whole night. I even wrote you a country pop hit on the night, which we should release at some stage, called The Narrow Road, which I think was a good song. And the team did an amazing job, didn't they, really, honouring you and Mum really, really well. It was a really, really special weekend, actually. And we want to, as kids, really, of the parents, say a big thank you to our Alive team and Howard and all the team that put that together, because it was a special weekend. It was
very, very creative, actually. And I've been to 3 or 4 of those, a couple in America and 1 or 2 in this country. And I would say that the team did such a fabulous job.
Yeah, it was great.
We were highly honoured. That was a very emotional time.
It was,
red carpet treatment. They gave us gifts, and also it is with a sense of joy, but recognising also we've got friends where that didn't happen, where they'd led for many years, and that final, if you like, gathering was not really too commendable.
Sure.
I've seen the good, the bad,
and the interesting,
and maybe even we could use the word ugly.
We could do, So some lessons to be learned as we move on. Obviously, time will tell. But if we move on to like the last bit to close this session in terms of finishing well, we've obviously talked about some of the maybe frustrations and disappointments we felt as leadership letdown and those type of things. Is there any kind of tips, advice that you would bring at this season in your life that can really set you up well to be a leader that finishes well?
Yeah, well, there's certain words we use that many people would talk about. One of them is the word accountable.
Yeah.
And I would say that every ministry person should be accountable.
Yeah.
Now, the difficulty is you never know whether someone's accountable until they're held to account.
Yes.
In other words, somebody saying no to something. And that accountability group do have to be quite courageous.
Sure.
To tell you like it is. Mm-hmm. And one of the fears could be the word that I might have is that people being nice to us don't tell us quite the truth. So sure. I've said to one or two people, if you see that we're missing it, if we're not, when we're preaching, we're missing it, we need you out of friendship and love to tell us.
Yes.
And because it would be very embarrassing to be, thinking we were still doing well and everybody else is, thinking differently.
Yeah.
So, but accountability is an interesting one because that does require a measure of vulnerability, and also it's possible for people to look you in the eye and to say that they're behaving themselves or they're, everything's okay.
Yeah.
But there's a little time bomb ticking in their character or
Sure.
something behind the scenes, sort of secret areas, that kind of thing. So I would say accountability, and the question for all leaders is, I think this, am I genuinely, in real terms, accountable?
Yeah.
Now, that should be to leadership groups, elderships, however a church is organised.
Yes.
But there need to be people that can speak into our lives. And that's why sometimes the bigger figures of charismatic gift, etc., they're sometimes so out there, sometimes above others in terms of their abilities and
Sure.
and their skills, that actually nobody's really speaking into their lives.
Yeah.
So accountability. The other thing I would say is that the simple things of the Christian faith, like the devotional life, prayer, scripture. I mean, one of the Psalms says, how can a person remain pure? And it says, according to your word. And it's the necessity to keep God's word, the Bible, at the heart of who we are, and to keep a prayer life.
Yeah.
So your personal devotions, I think, are important. And the other thing I would say is that this succession stuff is easier coped with if you recognise it's a lot of your life, but it's not your whole life.
Yeah.
And that there are other parts to the call of God on your life to remain faithful in your marriage. We've talked a bit about that.
Yeah.
To remain good parents, grandparents. One of the joys Irene and I are having at the moment is grandchildren, who are just a joy.
That's good.
And
glad they are for you.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. But some of those things that are happening. One of my grandsons regularly contacts me about deep theological issues, and the girls, your girls, as you know, they're around our home.
Yeah.
They persecute me somewhat.
They do. They've got you doing some really interesting, like, TikTok dances at stage. We should maybe release a few of those. You've got some moves.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You've got
yeah.
to keep the moves going.
Yeah, those hips don't lie.
This is true.
I don't know. Anyway, you were on a roll there.
Yeah. So those were the things that instantly came to mind.
Yeah, I think they were great.
Anything else?
No, I don't think so. And I think that we've seen that happen. This isn't just theory and talk.
Perhaps one more comes to mind, actually.
Yeah, go for it.
Which might be the example of those that have gone before.
Sure.
You know, so in the book of Hebrews, it talks about a great cloud of witnesses that have run the race.
Yeah.
And have finished the course. You think of St. Paul, who says, I've run the race, I've finished the course. So finishing the course, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I've gone over that a bit, and sometimes, because I'd like to live longer,
Yes.
I'm thinking, I've better make sure I've got a bit more course left to finish. But God knows the beginning of things and the end of things. And also, I've found it useful. The older I've got, I've started to really think more seriously, for obvious reasons, about eternal issues.
Sure.
So I remember reading quite recently some statements of Billy Graham just before he died. It's nice reading some of those death experiences, the good stories of people that just passed into the presence of the Lord with dignity, etc. But the example of Scripture, all of those that served their generation, but actually all of those didn't have even what we have today in terms of the faith that Jesus, the Son of God, has died on a cross that we might live forever, risen from the dead, he's ascended on high, all of those things that we believe to be true.
It's possibly grouped into the accountability thing, but do you think the whole area of mentorship is pretty important? I know we've already quoted Rick Warren, but Rick Warren said a while ago, always when you pick a mentor, pick a dead one. And I kind of thought, I don't really understand that. But then years later, you find all of these people who were probably mentors to people. Then we find out things have happened in their lives, various things. So there is some element of truth in that, because it's all about finishing well, isn't it? And so, I think healthy mentors and those type of things.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be wonderful to hear the words, well done, good and faithful servant. And we can't take any of that stuff for granted.
No.
And you can mess it up as a young person, as a teenager, and you can mess it up in your old age. And I think it's important that we remain connected to local church, connected to people. A big prayer for Aaron and myself is, Lord, please help us not to be grumpy old people. Because you know how this is. People that have served the Lord well.
I've never noticed it in you.
Well, behind the scenes, occasionally
we've noticed a few
moments.
Yeah.
But we live in a real world, a fallen world. We live in a world where we have all kind of spiritual battles, temptations, tests, all those kind of things come to us. And therefore, to be part of a local church that loves you, leadership that you're accountable to, friends that you can call on 3 o'clock in the morning,
3 a.m. friends.
All of those kind of things are very, very important.
It is.
And so my final comment on this might be, if there's anybody relating with this who served the Lord for years and years and have had to hand things off and are feeling rather lonely at this time, my suggestion would be, don't isolate yourself. Don't have pity parties and the what ifs. But embrace the years ahead. And I perhaps final comment would be, I remember a person who actually was a leader of Youth for Christ years ago. He'd got into the age bracket that I'm now in, and had said, this is one of the best seasons of my life. Being a grandfather is one of the greatest joys that I've had. And I'd like to be in that category as well.
I also felt a bit prompted then. Maybe there are some leaders that you've spoken about that are listening, but maybe there's some leaders who are actually feeling, I've missed it, or I've messed up, or am I going to hear that? Is there still enough time? Is there still enough time for me to get it right, and all those type of things? And we would obviously say yes. I watched this great little quote. There's an old preacher, I think he was Welsh, I can't remember his name, and he shares the story about, have you heard the man on the middle cross? Oh, it's great. So just talking about the thief who's on the cross, and obviously what would that have been like when he arrived at heaven? And, he makes some kind of a little bit of a joke around it, St. Peter, St. Paul there, wait, how on earth are you here? You were the thief. And he just says this great line, well, the man on the middle cross said I could come. And so I was just thinking about that. Maybe there's some leaders who think, well, I've gone so far, and I've kind of made so many mistakes, or been outside of church ministry and those type of things. I think we would give a gentle encouragement. It's never too late.
No.
It's never too late to get your life back on track. It's never too late to become a good influence on the people around you. It's never too late to finish well because you're still going. Do you think?
And God specialises in taking hold of people that have messed up. So Saul becomes Paul.
Absolutely.
A persecutor of the church becomes an apostle of the church.
Yeah.
And it's all by God's grace.
And it's never too late to finish well.
Never too late.
Never too
the God
late.
of the second chance.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you've enjoyed listening to this little mini series. We will be coming back very soon with some new content, which I'm really excited about. We've discussed a couple of ideas. We're going to talk about moments of crisis, how we deal with those, because we've obviously experienced some of that. We're also going to talk about worship, which will be a great one. But hey, drop in the comments if you feel there's anything that you think would be helpful. Not from me, more from the legend that is Stuart Bell. He's far more wiser.
We're in it together, son.
Oh, thank you, Father. But yeah, it's been a good one.
Okay.
See you soon.
Over and out.
Bye.
God bless.